44 minutes past the hour. Thank you for staying the daily report. As I did tell you tonight, we focus on the AUC aftermath. In studio to have this discussion are none other than Maina Miruri on my immediate left. He is the former MCK chairman as well as an expert on matters IR. Thank you so much for joining us and good evening. Indeed. In the middle is Gordon Othiambo, an IR expert as well. Welcome, Gordon. And last but not least, also Stephen Ndegwa, IR expert, USIU, and director of South to South Dialogues. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. And let me begin with you, Maina. From what you saw at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, did you expect that, or had you had high hopes of the win of Raila Odinga?
With a background in diplomacy,
yes,
I expected that. More than half. My expectation was more than half that we were likely to flop. It was a job well done, badly presented to such an audience. It's a diplomatic, I would say, we worked ourselves into a diplomatic conundrum that we could not come out of. That was my take.
That was it, yeah. And what did you think perhaps was the, the biggest mishap or the biggest flop that could have or could have caused all this?
It was a combination of many rather than one. Mm-hmm. The build-up came with many mistakes. We seemed to put in more work than the target needed. We overworked ourselves. Yeah, we'll explain later.
Yes.
We overworked ourselves to an extent where we did more than was needed in Addis. We didn't have to do all that we did to win this seat. And there were many mistakes, as we will point out later. Mm-hmm. And one of the what seemed like the last straw on the camel's back that came tumbling down with us was the way we even bombed Addis with our presence. Mm-hmm. Those things are not done in diplomatic circles. Mm-hmm. You don't do them at the UN, you don't do them at AU. Uh-huh. Diplomacy is a quiet game. Many winners don't have to say anything, and they win.
They win.
We said too much. We lost.
Uh-huh. Absolutely, and we'll be getting to see what mishaps, how else we flopped, as Nairobi flopped in this. Gordon, when you look at the razzmatazz that followed this whole AUC campaign, was that very important or necessary, or how was it supposed to be contained?
First, patriotism requires that we be hopeful to the last end.
Yes.
Till the last whistle. Patriotism requires us that we keep hoping. Mm-hmm. But that notwithstanding, many people will have many suggestions around this, but you see, when someone is acting out of their own convolution, you might not dictate how you want someone to use their own money to do some other things. However, I think there is a better way that other things can be done. But there's absolutely no wrong in people showing up in solidarity with an individual in respect to the country that is contesting for a particular seat. As to whether we expected this, AUC has always had its fair share of surprises right from the beginning, back now like three seats ago, where we had Lamini Zuma actually hosting a sitting chair, that is Jinping. Then we had Musa Faki, who was little talked about during Amina and Bathili's run, and all expected that it was either Bathili of Senegal or Amina of Kenya. We also got a surprise. So I think, to me, it is all about lessons. It's not about the loss. It's about the lessons we learn and how we act upon those lessons moving into the future.
Yeah, and speaking up from lessons, because it's an interesting question, Stephen, how many times can we have lessons? This was the second shot. How many more times can we have lessons at such stints?
Thanks, George, for inviting me. And actually, that is the pertinent question. That is what I was actually going to respond to him.
Yeah.
We move from blunder to blunder. We have lost a lot of opportunities in international, job market at that level, at the high level. Amina Mohammed, we know what made us lose, you see. And if you look at the same script was used for the Raila AUC chairmanship, which took us back, to the same situation of losing. And like my colleague Maina Mwirori said, diplomacy is a quiet game. Look at how Mohammed Yusuf played his game. We never had him. He didn't have any razzmatazz. When he appeared in Addis, it was just him. Okay, the photo that appeared there was just him, his wife, and the president. And of course, there was a few technocrats, okay, who were there. But Kenyans thought that winning is, being haughty, being rowdy, and, So I think we are not learning, and we shall continue losing the game because other countries are watching us, and they're wondering, what kind of stakes are you placing in these things? Are you out to help Africa, or are you out to help the organizations that you are yearning to lead, or you're just there for your own selfish interests? Yes.
Maina, was Raila Odinga the best candidate that Kenya had to offer? He has been regarded as Africa's finest, East Africa's finest. Was he the best candidate? Let's even go there from the get-go.
First, I'll say it's not even more of who we sent there.
Okay.
It was more Kenya. We could have taken any candidate there and won it. Forget about what people have been saying, that this was a campaign that had two impacts. One at home here, there is a way Kenyans viewed it. And it was fought locally in a manner that did not count in Addis. In Addis, he carries a lot of weight. He's internationally known. Yeah. He's been the infrastructure
commissioner.
Yeah, of AU. He's a foreign affairs healed guy in many ways. He's experienced. He's been a presidential contender in Kenya. You cannot put down his clout. He's got what it takes. And some of the things they said about him need not have counted. Age at some of these levels don't count. Even if you look at some of the United Nations bosses we've had, old guys, and they perform their job. If you look at what they were saying during the interview, that he can only speak English. Raila is a good German speaker. They are only mentioning French. It's because Germany has no foothold in Africa. He's good in many ways. Mostly, to me, it's the way the campaign was handled, and not of his own making. Some of the mistakes that were made, you cannot blame him for. You blame the country and the campaign team.
Talking of those mistakes, Gordon, are there things that perhaps you think the Honorable Raila Odinga would have said, no, let's not go this way, we can go this way?
Well, we can only compare Raila's campaign to another campaign that we've seen, at least conducted by Kenya. So when we say this might have not been conducted well, in comparison to what? Maybe in comparison to Amina's campaign. If you ask me, this campaign one had technocrats. It had those who have the diplomatic acumen. It had those who had the administrative know-how. So it wasn't something really new to them. One thing that to me is very fundamental is that the campaigns were done and done well. They were done well. The only mess-up that at a professional level that I can see is in the last minutes of this campaign. And it is not from the Kenyan side. The communique that came from the SADC, it was a communique that had weight and well intended for these particular campaigns. We saw what it was, and it reflected exactly like that in the voting. even when Randre Marato had now left, we could see how the figures were beginning to change. And that is coupled up with so many things. One of them being the DRC crisis. We know up to now the position that Kenya has taken, or the position that is perceived to have been taken by Kenya with the DRC and the SADC region, which we will go into later. But I think that Kenya lost this basically because of the big man syndrome. Kenya is playing a perfect game, and this perfect game is not going down well with many of our friends in the sub-Saharan region. And that has also been a matter in the global world. You ask yourself, when did even America fail UN Secretary General position? Mm-hmm. Because they already know, the world already know, there is somewhere you play. There's a league in which you play. Mm-hmm. So when you are given more powers, they become very skeptical of you. And that is the thing that is eating Kenya. Maybe it is time Kenya retreats and do a roadmap on what really our foreign policy intends to do for us as a country within the region and in the continental level.
Mm-hmm. Bona Stephen,
yes.
Is a handshake a courtesy call, a promise to a vote?
Sorry, come again?
Is a courtesy call, yes, or a handshake,
yes,
or a visit to a president's office,
okay,
does it translate to a promise to a vote?
No. You seem to be reading my thoughts tonight, because I was actually, I had noted here that you remember when Moi was kind of pulling away from Saitoti, yes, you know, during the KANU days. Mm-hmm. And he said, urafiki ni tofauti, you know. So simply because we are getting all these photo ops, and that is where we confuse diplomacy. Mm-hmm. Diplomacy is not about photo ops and shuttling from one place to the other. It is about getting the commonalities in which you can, okay? So you can even go and get a photo op with someone you think is very close. Like people are saying, oh, Raila is a friend of Tshisekedi's father, but the current president of the DRC. But this is a different ballgame, you see. It's not about those personal relationships, because here there are big stakes. Mm-hmm. And so when people like SADC came up, and I knew that Raila's goose had been cooked when SADC came and gave that statement. I mean, it was just supposed to tell you guys that, you know, this is over. And we seemed to take it lightly because we tended to play our local politics. We transplanted our local politics into the, you know, global or the intercontinental scene. We didn't look at the sensibilities that, you know, affect the regions and countries. Okay, we have those sensibilities, but for one reason, the political class did not see us losing, but everyone else. You go to social media, even people who are honest, you know, the problem with this country is there's no honesty. People will tell lies because they want to gain from something, you know, mm-hmm, but no one will tell the king that you're naked because you don't want to look back in, but people would have told, if they listened to the experts, diplomatic experts and so forth, they should have known that this campaign is overdone, okay? And we should have been more strategic and quiet in the way and we have a new foreign policy document. I don't know how much that was applied in this campaign, or it was it's just a document for sure, you know? Mm. Yes.
Yeah, Bona Maina, before you proceed for a break, there is this whole conversation about how that SADC letter was received by Nairobi, and we had what the PS of Foreign Affairs, Korir Sing'oei, said. To them, it does not signify a lot, whereas they were taking nothing to chance. Do you think there was a lot of, you know, downplaying a lot, as, you know, Stephen says?
What seemed to hurt us more, indeed, I would think, was Sing'oei's statement to targeting SADC and Madagascar. You know, Madagascar is like that thing goats have here. It's neither on the skin nor on the meat, because Madagascar acts like it's in the south, but when it favors it, it looks again like it's in the east. And Sing'oei was complaining that we need an AU change of rules where these things need to be defined very well. Which side of Africa do you play in? which in future could force us to have the way UN Secretary General is rotated continentally.
Yes.
It's time now, maybe in future, we think of this time it's Southern Africa, this time it's East, this time it's North. So that when it's East, we know then it's Raila. But now he was complaining that this one is not clear. And that's why we keep losing to Francophone. They are more than us.
They're more than us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So it's the complaint by Singapore actually had weight, but was ignored. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it needs to be given weight in future. Otherwise, we'll never have it will be taking a long time before we have an Anglophone. Only the French-speaking and Maghreb, North Africans, and they are very powerful. Apart from Egypt, Egypt speaks English, but it votes with the Maghreb. We had so many ways to lose. And indeed, Raila tried to hit 20 and 22. It was a surprise he hit those votes at the first rounds.
In the first rounds. I know, Gordon, you are itching to respond. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we continue this conversation. We've just lifted the lead and the top layer, if you wish, of this conversation on AUC and the aftermath, and of course the ramifications that it will have in Kenyan politics. That conversation continues shortly with my guests who are still here in studio. Please keep your feedback coming. We'll be back shortly.